I'm not getting in on that, Gary. You're in your own trouble there.
Yeah, he has me all up on his own.
There's not room in your doghouse for me.
I mean, like this one section right here is probably the best part. And then it's three sections, so. So it's like what it is a refrigerator box that I put, and instead of being four sides, it's three, and I just keep. Yes, yeah, I got a decorator. But my question is, I asked Marsha about maybe just stand and kind of behind it, because I think it's 6 foot tall. It's 6 foot tall. But more I can cut, thing right here, and probably I mean, it stands by itself, but it didn't have to worry about how sturdy it is. Yeah, I'll link to it. Well, yes, I'm definitely. Oh, that's just the word. That's okay.
Oh,
Basically go right there.
That's the dinner bell?
He's back here sitting down talking. He ain't seen everybody for a month. You've got to make up talk time with everybody. We're waiting on our assistant song leader.
Do you feel like everybody's looking at you, Mason?
We was talking about some business. Church business, actually.
I told him you hadn't been here in a month, so you had to make up all the time and talk to everybody. Well, it's time to get our service started this evening, and Mason's gonna come up and lead us in the song. So, Julianne, you and Mason come on. Grab your green song books, and we'll turn to page 69. Page 69 in your green book. 69.
Are you sure?
Big book, as Rusty says. Everybody stand if you would. We are doing it twice.
Well, who's had a good week so far? Tell us about it. How's that? Yeah, tell us all about your good week.
People get tired of hearing me.
Well, some of us have had bad weeks, and we need our spirits lifted, so that you guys with good weeks, spread the good cheer.
It's gonna get worse tomorrow, though.
Oh, quit being a pessimist.
It's gonna rain. We need rain.
Stop being a pessimist.
It's just for one day.
She can't stand the forecast.
It's until it's got to be needed.
Jeff, I just want to thank the Lord that I'm working a little closer to home now. It's nice being able to be home in the evenings and give my family a little bit. Enjoy it.
someone else. Something you want to share with us?
Jeff, I'll praise the Lord. I had a eye doctor appointment and no bleeds, no problems other than the typical stuff. And God just keeps blessing, and I look in the mirror and think, why do you do that for me? You know, I keep buying bigger and bigger mirrors because my face gets bigger and bigger. But I praise the Lord.
I can thank the Lord we finished our last day of school today, and I've got 4 more days until I can join the semi-retired, the summer retired one, there you go. But I'm thankful for my job. I always am so thankful for my job. It's been a little bit of a stressful year, but the Lord has still continued to bless us, and I just want to thank Him for that. He kept us in this little bubble. I can't even tell you guys how Daniel's was protected from all the sicknesses. People were getting quarantined left and right, but ours was so minimum considering that we were the largest elementary school in Raleigh County. So we didn't have to shut down one time, and that's a miracle all in itself. But God has blessed us, and I'm thankful for my job. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my time that I get in the summers with my kids. That's what I wanted, and the Lord He has answered that prayer.
Someone else?
If I want to stand up and give God praise, I know you guys sing where Deb had been with a great man for 37 years. No, you got your attention anyway.
That's
No, I do want to give God praise for 37 years of marriage with Deb. Again, God has continuously blessed us for 37 plus years, and just want to thank Him for that. Again, not been easy years, and there been some bumps and ups and downs, but God always stands true to what He says. You know, we just have to believe in Him, have the faith and trust in Him. And I just want to praise Him for that. Praise Him for my family, and again, just the many blessings that He continuously gives us. Just want to give Him praise.
Sure. Ross, you ready?
I want to thank God for all of His blessings on me. You know, I sit and thinking, you know, how many of you feel sorry for yourself at times? Well, you know, I'm bad about that. I said, I feel sorry for myself. And then you go somewhere and you see somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to a friend of mine. I went to a shop to have my bow work on. And I was talking to him, and he was complaining his knee hurts. And he's a whole lot younger than me. But his knee hurt and this hurt. And I said, you know, Mike, there's always somebody that's worse off than you. And then when he got to thinking, he had friends that were worse off than him. And he was feeling sorry for himself. And I do the same thing. Sometimes I feel sorry for myself. Why this, why that, why that, why this. But you know, there's a lot of people that'll stand and praise God that have a lot more afflictions than I do. And I thank God for that. So y'all pray for me while I try to sing a song. And the road is rough and long. Sometimes and I won't have to worry anymore. Someday when life is over and I've said my last goodbye, I'm gonna see my Savior standing at the door. Then I'll hear him say, "You're welcome. All your cares are left behind, and I won't have to worry anymore. I won't have to worry when I reach the other shore. All my troubles will be over, and I'll rest forevermore. I will be on Jesus, and my heart will be aglow, and I won't have to worry anymore. I will be on Jesus, and my heart will be aglow, and I won't have to worry anymore.
I thought you were getting up to sing. Snooze, you lose.
You said I should have asked?
Had me up on the edge of my seat.
Should tell the online crowd. For those of y'all that couldn't see the service, Ed was getting up and we all thought he was going to sing. Someone else, all more testimony.
I think Jesus and God has seen me through some hard times. When Ronnie's talking about feeling sorry, I remember back a long, long time ago, when I was just a young boy in the hospital. It was St. Alm's Hospital in Virginia. One of the staff got on to me, and they said that was self-pity and they wouldn't have it. Then I got to thinking of the times I used to sit around at home, and Dad would tell me to quit sitting around sulking all the time. I just got to thinking all that stuff, and he's all, and I just thank God that I made it through all that so far.
Amen.
That's right, bless you, Bruce.
We all have a tendency to do that from time to time. Like he's talking about our self-pity parties. We sit around and just think about things, and sometimes that's good to reflect on things, but most of the time we let our minds drift and we think about things that happen to us or bad things in life or this or that instead of, if we turn that around and look on the good things of life, maybe we wouldn't be sitting there pouting or sulking or whatever. Someone else. Thought? Something? Well, I brought a little book with me to cheat tonight for devotion, so we're, I don't know if anybody else is watching the series of Chosen. You may not even know what I'm talking about, I don't know. But anyway, it's a Christian series, and it's talking about Jesus and how he called his 12 disciples. And it is biblically based, but it's got a lot of filler, okay? It's making a story out of it. So it's very close biblically based. But anyway, there's a devotion book, so I picked it up to read, and I'm going to share it with you a little bit out of it. And the first one is called Before. It's out of Isaiah chapter 43, verse 1. It says, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." It says, every follower of Jesus has had a not-so-great before. A brash fisherman, talking about Peter, a pious, fancy-pants religious leader, a thieving, indifferent to suffering tax collector, a demon-possessed woman, so insignificant that her before isn't even recorded, and we're left to surmise what it might have been. And yet God calls people in the before when they are even aware they're simply broken versions of themselves. God calls people before he begins his transformative work of redemption because he sees the past, he sees past the before to what he purposed and planned. He sees past the before to those he loves enough to call his own. Take Israel, for example. Isaiah prophesied over God's chosen nation. "Fear not, for I have redeemed you." Not during a time of obedience, but during their rebellion. A time filled with idol worship and wandering hearts and intense callousness to sin, not to mention all the painful consequences that they were experiencing as a result of their choices. It was spoken long before their repentance. "I have called you by name. You are mine," he continues in verse 1. When Isaiah spoke those words, Israel was rebelling against all God had done for them and all he wanted to do. But God didn't turn away. He showed mercy. He spoke his love over his chosen people, claiming them as his own before they agreed to be. He entered into the before. God speaks what is true over us too. His plan of redemption is on the march because he has called us by name. Our choices don't derail his. What we see when we look in the mirror doesn't determine what he sees or who will be by his hand. And so our brokenness doesn't alter his plans, nor do circumstances, other people, or our own choices determine our value. Our value is assigned by the one we belong to. So we don't have to fear. Fear not, fear not who you're going to be. Fear not, God can redeem your choices and use them for good. Fear not, God can heal your heart, your body, your relationships. Fear not, you were made for more than what you've been experienced so far. Fear not, this is only the beginning. Every follower of Jesus has had a not so great before, but every follower of Jesus has an after. The rowdy fisherman became the bedrock preacher of the early church, healer of the sick and lame, and fearlessness unto death. The leader of impersonal religion became personal friends with Jesus, finally understanding and being changed by the scriptures. He devoted his life. Hold on, I lost my place. He devoted his life to studying. A taxman, trader, became a member of the elite 12 and author of the first gospel of the New Testament. The woman too insignificant to even have her before recorded, was so precious to Jesus that she became the first person he appeared to after he arose from the dead, the first one to hear his tender voice, and the first to witness the culmination of all he claimed to be and do. She got to go tell the boys. That's just the first one, and like I said, we've been watching the series a little bit there, but did you notice when Jesus was calling his 12, and as it alluded to, he didn't just call wealthy people, he didn't call the elite, so to speak, But he also didn't just call the poor. He didn't just call the ones that were broken. But he called those that he needed. If you're sitting here tonight, God has called you because you're needed. It's not that he can't get his work done with somebody else if you refuse, but he's called you to do something for him. And it's your choice whether you're going to do that or not. We all have past. We all have things in our life that we're not proud of, that God has brought us from, or redeemed us from, or saved us from, forgiven us. And because he's done that, we now have a future. And we can have a future with him and serving him. And so, I'll probably be bringing you one of these every week for a little while. I think there's 40 of them in this one book, so if y'all get bored with it, just keep your tomatoes to yourself. But anyway. Someone else, a comment, something you want to share? No, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Let's take prayer requests. Anywhere, it doesn't matter.
Remember my family, remember, Michael Street, my niece's son, he's my father. Remember my two sisters, my niece's son, my sister, my niece, Karen.
Continue to remember my brother and my nephews and nieces. Most all of them are lost.
Still remember my family, also remember my brothers and their families. Still remember Sister Eileen, she's not doing very well right now. Keep Harry and Sue in your prayers and all the other Shadleys.
Continue to remember me and my family, remember my two brothers, and remember my mother, she's having some back issues now. And continue to remember Debbie in your prayers.
Sister Donna mentioned Harry. Let's do remember him. He is still in the hospital. Had to have another procedure this morning. He developed a hole in his bowel, but still things seem to go okay with him. But he just had a lot going on with him. So continue to remember Harry in your prayers.
I'd like the church to remember some of my coworkers. Betty Akers' sister's on a ventilator, and they moved her to Huntington. She's an elderly lady she's not doing well. And then also Shane Houck has a lot of medical issues that they're dealing with right now. And Laura Ferguson, her dad has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. It's several places, but it has really gotten into the spine. So just remember that, and I guess they traveled to Morgantown today, so just remember that situation. And several different things. I'd like the church to remember Christina's family. She works with me, so we talk regularly, and she just asked that we pray for her family.
Jeff, we always desire your prayers. Let's keep our young people in our prayers. Our graduates that we had here a couple weeks ago, let's keep them uplifted in our prayers. Of course, our church. We still have unsaved loved ones. Keep John and Sandy and kids in your prayers. Dad and her sister and Rob and Paul and Nick. We ask you to keep them uplifted in your prayers. Also, we have several people at work with different situations. Also, we ask you to keep Wack and Matt and Asher in your prayers, just look with them. And we have a couple unspoken prayer requests, and we always desire prayers. Our upcoming Bible school, let's keep them in prayer.
And
I have a coworker and her husband that need your prayers, and, also, I think that, it looks like Sonny and Mike are gonna get to keep the 2 children that they have, and they'll get to legally adopt them, is the plan, so remember them as all this takes place. In addition to their 2. Their 2's theirs.
Any others? How about unspoken prayer requests, those that have those? You want to, come join us at the altar. If not, you can pray where you're at. Let's take these to the Lord.
Good morning. Good evening. Anybody get you a nap today? Wow. See, I don't usually ask that question on Wednesdays. Because those of you that got a nap on Wednesday, we could probably take a poll on that.
Or every day this week. I deserved it.
All right, let's turn to Joshua chapter 3, if you would. There's going to be some things in this chapter that are going to be familiar to some of you, especially if you've been in church for a while. But yet, then there's some other things that God laid upon our heart or showed us maybe to bring out in maybe a little bit of a different fashion than what you've seen or heard before. And so that's what prompted us to send the message out a little bit earlier this evening, those that are on the text list. I actually meant to send it in the afternoon, but time got away from me. But it's kind of a cool thing whenever we sit back and look at the bigger picture of what's going on here. And we'll get into that a little bit later as we go. So we're just going to dive right into the scriptures tonight. First 4 verses in Joshua chapter 3. I think we were started on that side last week. Is that right? Anybody remember? I can't. One week blends into another. So, what's that?
I thought it was Rusty and Barney.
Okay, then we're going to go over here. Joshua chapter 3, first 4 verses, starting on this side.
And Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, and he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over.
And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the hosts.
And they commanded the people, saying, When ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priest of the Levites bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it.
Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits measure. Come not near unto it, that ye may know the way by which ye must go, for ye have not passed this way heretofore.
All right. So, God loves it whenever we have faith in Him. God loves it whenever that we almost have a daring faith. And what I mean by that is there's just no fear. That there is faith. Okay? Have you ever double dog dared Belinda to do anything?
You don't have to, she'll just go ahead and do it.
But if she's got any hesitancy to it, you double dog dare her and she'll do it. There's a lot of times that we approach life and we're kind of hesitant, you know. And that's what I mean. We need to have that faith that God is with us and that He is there. He's going to lead us through no matter what it is. So as Joshua was leading the children of Israel, the Hebrews, as that now he's going to lead them over into the promised land, there is an obstacle that has now come upon them. You know, imagine that, an obstacle in life, right? But now the next obstacle that has approached them is the Jordan River. Now, you know, we've heard a lot about the Jordan River throughout the Old Testament and even in the New Testament. You know, Jordan River is very, very common. It's very well known. And but that was now a border. This river was representing a border that was their past and now was opening up to their future. And all they had to do was to get across that river, and everything that God had promised them was going to be fulfilled. So, although that there was a promise that was there was a great challenge as they come upon the river. There was a definite amount of faith that was going to be required in them to cross the Jordan River. And as, you know, again, remember now we've talked about the spies and, you know, we've talked about Rahab and all this. You know, the people that are over in the promised land, they're scared of the children of Israel because how that God's blessed them. But yet, you know, we still got to get there. So how are we going to get there? And so hopefully we're going to see some encouraging things that will help us in our daily life as we go through here in chapter 3. So in these opening few verses, you know, Joshua's kind of laying out the order, laying out the plan of what they were going to do, and it kind of sounds like how that they moved through the wilderness. Okay, well, the Ark of the Covenant's going to lead us. And you know, there's a lot of times when we start reading things like this that we've read time and time again, and how many places when you read in Exodus and Leviticus, and even in Numbers, and a little bit in Deuteronomy. You start reading that, and then you start talking about the Ark of the Covenant and how that they were led, and your eyes and your mind kind of glazes over a little bit, and you've got to snap yourself to attention to actually concentrate on it a little bit closer. Now, if you do that here, you're going to miss something. So the Ark of the Covenant is going to lead them. Ark of the Covenant is going to go, and so now what we would call the older ones at this point, they were most likely teenagers or younger whenever that they crossed the Red Sea. Because if you'll remember now, the adults that crossed the Red Sea, because of all of their grumbling and complaining and murmuring and doubt and all that, they died in the wilderness. But that was 40 years. So now, those that were younger, those that were kids, they're now the older ones that are now looking here, and we've got this body of water in front of us, and I sort of remember that, and we've kind of had stories about it, and I'm sure Joshua and Caleb brought that to their remembrance from time to time. So probably a little bit of anticipation was going on here, because there's a 3-day wait period here. And so the longer you've got to wait, you've got anticipation that builds. And the Ark of the Covenant was always to represent what? The presence of God. Okay? That's what the Ark of the Covenant, that is why anytime they moved, the Ark was to lead them. That was God's presence that was there. So, now, the distance between the people and the Ark of the Covenant was supposed to be roughly, and again, we're not going to get into exact numbers, but let's just say roughly, about 3,000 feet. Half a mile. Okay? So again, whenever I tell you 3,000 feet, you're thinking, okay, that's a lot of feet. Half a mile. That's probably a better example for us to think about the distance. That's halfway out to the main road from here. Okay? So a half a mile is how far away. Now we live in the mountains, so a half a mile, is this or this. But if you go out in flatland, you Buckeyes, you know what I'm talking about, right? You can see for miles. So, you can look out and you can see for a half a mile very easily. So, you can think for a half mile back, everybody's going to see the movement of the Ark of the Covenant as it goes forward and how it's going to be seen by all these people behind it. Okay. So, here we have, if y'all can't see this, you might want to move up a little bit. So, here we have somewhat of a map, if you will, that shows the Jordan River as it starts up and comes out of Mount Hermon up at the top. Most rivers start from the mountains, because does water flow uphill or downhill? Downhill every time, doesn't it? So it's going to flow downhill. Is that a question?
No.
Okay.
There's one place that it goes uphill.
Where's that?
Is it downhill from North Carolina to West Virginia?
Yeah,
it's the only river that flows from south.
North to south, it still flows downhill.
It still flows downhill.
I think a mile does too, if I ain't wrong.
Yeah, still flows downhill. Still flows out of the mountains. It may flow from south to north, but it does flow downhill. So now this is, of course, going from north to south, which is typical for rivers. Now, and there's a couple of names up there. You can see the Mediterranean Sea out there. You can kind of get just an idea of things. This is a possible crossing point for the Jews. And again, nobody's going to, when they draw these maps, they're not going to know exactly. But, Jericho is over here. So that's the Promised Land. And all of this water from the Jordan River flows down into the Dead Sea. So the mountains at the top, Mount Hermon, several hundred feet above sea level. Does anybody know anything interesting about the Dead Sea?
Nothing lives in.
Nothing lives in it. What else?
salt.
Okay? Yes? Anything else? 1,300 feet below sea level. We're talking, this water is going to flow. The Dead Sea, it's kind of like New Orleans is. Okay? It's down below sea level. That's the reason it's so, everything floods so easily there. Okay? Now, if you've paid much attention to maps throughout your past, I know some people do, some people don't. But do you notice something about this riverbed? Now, obviously the blue, that's kind of the normal pool of water. Does anything notice about that track going all the way up to the mountains?
Wasn't straight.
Well, you get that too, yeah? It's not straight. But now, if you'll notice, it's a little bit, and you know, again, it's hard to show a 3D picture on a 2D thing, right? But you can kind of see where at times the river has widened here, and all of this as a river can spread out during flood times. And again, we live in the mountains, we know that, right? When you got a lot of water and it's really pouring down off the mountain, it's going to come. So the Jordan River, about 25% mud. And there was a lot of places and different times that it was muddier than others. Because if you remember, who was supposed to go wash in the muddy Jordan? Naaman was, right? And that's one of the reasons he didn't want to go. Because, you know, why am I going to go wash there? It's all mud. So, but that's roughly, that map is showing about 200 miles. So we've stretched 200 miles onto our screen. Pretty cool, huh? You say, is that what the cool thing is? No, not totally.
Satellite picture.
Yes, but we're getting there. So you could think about going 200 miles from several hundred feet, and I tried to find how tall Mount Hermon was, but I couldn't find that, to 1,300 feet below sea level. So I'm just going to pick a number, and let's just use round numbers. Let's just say the difference of 2,000 feet, which is roughly, you know, here in the Beckley area, our elevation is actually about 2,500 feet. So if you could imagine going from here down to New Orleans in 200 miles, how many miles is it to Gene and Joel's?
I don't know, long ways. 16 hours, how's that?
Jeff, you're the numbers guy. Any idea how long it is out there to there? They're not exactly in New Orleans, but they're in Louisiana. I can't remember. I've been that, you know, a lot longer than 200 miles. Okay? Sure. Lois agrees with that wholeheartedly. Okay, so about 1,000 miles. So we're a fifth of that here. A fifth of the time to get from here to sea level in West Virginia. That's where this water is. That's where it's going. Normally, and again, it's shown by a narrow line. Normally the Jordan is not that hard to cross. Because it's, you know, the water's moving fast. So the faster the water moves, it's not that shallow. Because it's going right on down. It's just trucking on down. So as that, you know, you think, okay, the children of Israel, they wouldn't have that big of a deal to cross the Jordan at this time. The time of year it is, the snow has just melted off of Mount Hermon. It's the springtime. Everything's wet. It's flood time. You got that right.
And what's the elevation of the land to the left and right?
Don't know that either. But that's what, and again, this is some of my background, this is what I see here as the water typically spreads. But here's what is, the historians have estimated that at this point in time, the Jordan River was a mile wide. Now do you see why it was so difficult for them to cross over to the other side? You can't be saying, God, can't we just wait about a month or so and it'll all be easy? Where's the daring faith? Okay? Where is that faith? So, the Jordan that's typically, kind of mild, but now let's just say, if it's 100 feet wide here and now it's a mile wide, no wonder that the challenge is there. We've waited 40 years to get to that promised land, and we get here, and this 100-foot wide stream is now a mile wide.
Maybe purposely did that to make them have faith.
Amen. There's a lot of times that things happen in our life that we look as a challenge or an obstacle, but it is an opportunity for us to exhibit faith and for our faith to grow. So, all of this time, all of this 40 years, it's literally in sight. And we can't get there. Nobody likes to wait. Who's the most... No, I'm not going to ask that. We're all impatient, right? If we would say who's the most impatient, there would be several of us who would probably raise their hands up. Nobody likes to wait. We're not patient. We are in a society now where we are the horn-honking, microwaving, FedEx mailing, and fast food eating society that we are. Everything's got to be quick. Yes, we do not want to wait for anything. We want everything to hurry. But sometimes God says, wait. Wait for it. It's hard, isn't it? Belinda and I, we have a few TV shows that we watch, and even sporting events that we watch. We tape them. You know why? Well, a lot of times we may not be home to watch them, but the other thing is you don't have to worry about commercials that way. You fast forward right through them. Yeah, but we don't want to wait through the commercial. And even if what you're watching, if it starts to drag and get slow, let's just kind of bump it up there a little bit. We don't want to wait. None of us want to wait. Sometimes God says, wait. There's an old phrase, don't just stand there, do something, right? My working career, many of you know this, my working career started in a wastewater treatment plant. I guess the first real job I had, let's just phrase it that way. Started in a sewage treatment plant down in Huntington. And I was a plant operator, and the gentleman who was the plant manager at that time, he was very old school. And he came from that adage of, don't just stand there, do something. And you're going to find this next remark very, very comical, okay? Because he was very old school. In a sewage treatment plant, the largest sewage treatment plant in the state of West Virginia, whenever I started working there, I kid you not, you could have eaten off the floors. He says, if you're going back, because everything was concrete, you had tunnels on the bottom side, you had things on the top. He said, I want everybody, you carry a rag and a towel in each pocket, and when you're going from one end of the plant to the other, you know what you're going to do? Wipe the handrails. If you wipe the top one on the way out, you wipe the middle one on the way back. That's the way he ran the ship. Okay? If you're going to stand there, do something. There was never an idle moment. Well, that's kind of the way we are with everything. We don't want to wait. But the children of Israel were now being told, here it is, it's all in sight. Wait. Just wait. All in God's timing. So, do we ever want God to hurry up? Do you ever think that sometimes waiting is a way of God reminding us that we're not the ones in charge? He is. His time, His way, everything that He, and waiting has a way of humbling us. We want to say that waiting has a way of slowing us down, but we find something to fill in that gap with while we wait, don't we? So, when we're waiting for God, we need to wait on Him. We need to learn to wait on God. Even though that we may not be hearing anything, He will speak. Even though that we may not be seeing anything happen, God is in the arrangements. God is working. All right. Let's go to verse 5 here a minute. Wherever we left off. Verse 5.
And Joshua said unto the people, Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you.
All right. So, whether it was in the Old Testament time here with Joshua, whether it's with us, God calls His people to holiness, to purity, and to consecration. So, for the Hebrew children of Israel to be on the edge of the Jordan, there were some ceremonial rites that they needed to go through to wash and to be clean. They had to flush the things out of their mind, and there's times that even all of us, there's times that thoughts come in our mind, and I'm not meaning evil and devious thought, but I think you all understand what I mean. There's just times we think things that are improper. Those things need to be flushed. Those things need to be gone. This all needs to happen. Pure hearts, your hands, your feet, everything at this time through the ceremonial rites. You're about to enter into the Holy Land. God sent the message through Joshua to the people is you need to be clean, you need to be consecrated, you need to be purified. They took off their shoes, they bowed down before God in humility, and this was just a way of God was telling His people, you're not just going to be coming over here for a while, you're coming to occupy the land. This is the land I've given you. This is serious stuff. So again, when we think about us preparing our lives for heaven, I think today that society has gotten away from how serious that heaven is. And how much that, we are to spend our life purifying, cleansing, becoming, that holy generation that God is looking for. That's what we're doing here in life. But again, it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes we need to wait on some things, and we don't like to wait. We get impatient. We just start losing all sorts of things. So, as that all of this is beginning to happen, the word consecration, sometimes that's our mind right there, right? A blank screen. But whenever that we think about consecration, the way that word is defined is sanctification of something by setting it apart as dedicated to God. So as Joshua was telling the children of Israel to consecrate yourself, consecrate your lives, we today, our lives need to be consecrated. We need to be sanctified. We need to be set apart, dedicated to God, or a solemn commitment of our life or our time for a cherished purpose. I don't know about you, but heaven is very cherished to me. That is a cherished purpose. So yes, as that, we talk about being sanctified and all of these different things, there needs to be this very solemn commitment in all of our life. Now, the reason that, and those of you that might be watching online, you may not see a blank screen. You'll see something here in a minute. But here in the church, I'm going to bring up 4 statements. And I didn't want you to start reading them until we were ready for this. So our life needs to be consecrated. Our life needs to be set apart. There needs to be this solemn dedication in our life. So I'm going to put 4 statements up here, and I want you to look at them, read them for a moment. I will read them out loud, or read along with me, to figure out which one might seem as a valid way that you need to consecrate your own life. I will spend at least an hour in prayer each day. I will give up secular entertainment for the rest of my life. I will ask Christ to daily live His life through me, and I will make sure that I'm doing at least one unselfish act daily. Now you might actually choose more than one of those that is important for you in your life to be consecrated. Does anybody want to volunteer very quickly on one of those 4 that jumps out at you? Number 1. Number 3.
I'm thinking number 4 is almost a trick. That is a good thing, but it kind of goes to the saying that being a good person or being unselfish won't get you into heaven.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else?
Mine quickly categorize them as the easiest and the hardest.
Okay. Which was the easiest?
Number 3, not that it's easy, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that pertaining to me. I just mean like if you were going to look at it as a group, number 3 would be typically a Christian should be able to do that. Number 1, oh my goodness. Like, oh my goodness, where in the world do you fit that in? But I get it. And number 2, that's another oh my goodness.
I think you might do that.
One would be easy to do because Paul gives you the instructions.
No.
You're in prayer all the time as you walk, thinking
Yeah.
about the heavenly things. And if you accumulate the time that you dedicated your thoughts to that area, you've done went way over an hour a day. So 1 and 3 would be a combination of 2 that would be the easiest to do.
So, do you see where there could be some, I'll use the word abuses in some of in any of these?
Number 3 is making it more dependent on the Lord than it is on you doing something.
Okay.
You can ask the Lord to help you live a life through Him, but you're not really putting any action into it. That's more putting, all right, Lord, I'm asking you to do this, so that's your problem. I'm not going to do anything about it.
Okay.
If you ask 25 people what secular England had, you'd get 25 different answers.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Number 4, like Jason mentioned, it could also be seen, I think we're pointing out on the negative side of things, but number 4 could turn into, well, if I'm doing something because I want, never mind, I'm not even gonna go there. Me and Jeff have this conversation all the time, I'm not even gonna do it.
Well, I think if you put that up there and said, I'm the pastor of this church and this is what you need to do, people may do those things, but are they doing them for the right reasons? Some people would say, well, that's working my way to heaven. If I don't pray for an hour, then I'm not going to make it to heaven. So it is, that's on the negative, but it goes back to what's the law? It's the intent.
Uh-huh.
And the purpose of why you do it in here, not he said do it, so I'm going to do it.
So you said people shouldn't pray an hour all day long wishing they win lottery?
Shouldn't be playing it to begin with.
That's number 2.
It don't say what you're praying about, it just says pray an hour.
So,
Did it say, but is that a total of an hour at the, exact, you know, what I'm looking at too is pray so many minutes in the morning, you'll pray in the afternoon. And as Steve said, you walk and talk to God all day long, but there has been times.
this is not intended to
No,
clarify
Yeah.
the amount of time. This is to get our minds thinking, which is what it's doing. Belinda used the word purpose. And somebody else used that word purpose. I'm going to use a different word. Motive. What's our motive?
Right.
Okay? What is our motive behind doing any of those? Okay? Is it good to give up some secular things? Better believe it. Do you have to give up every secular entertainment that's out there? No. I believe today that God can use the church in many secular entertainments. Because as Christians, that's where we're going to be able to reach some of these people. Okay? Again, don't be someplace you shouldn't be.
Luke,
Yes.
I do want to say, on a positive note, like for number 1, if touching base with the Lord, like you cleared your mind and you were talking to the Lord for an hour every single day,
Yep.
solid.
Yep.
Can you imagine what you would do? I think of War Room because Julianne just watched it recently and it was on at the house.
Yeah.
What you could do, it's like, you know, you have all the power. We do have the power. That's the thing, is we have that power.
Amen.
But the Lord, I mean, because the Lord could do wonders if you would actually do that.
Yep. Exactly.
Where is the wrong place for you not to be? I was reading this book one time. This preacher, the preacher man, he was once a drunk. He reared up in the bar rooms, but he got saved. Now he's the preacher man. His calling was to go back into those places to share the word and try to win some of his friends over. But he spent the rest of his life in the bars, in the joints, sharing the word. So where is the wrong place?
I believe in places like that, that is a calling, and if you're not called, don't be there.
Don't be there.
There are places you go, and God will let you know that you shouldn't be there.
Well, that was his calling. He went back to where his friends and places that he run around all his life being the way he was, and saw the error of his ways. Now he was going to go back out there and share that with them and try to get them to win some of them over to his way.
Well, see, we spend life, you know, and I use the example a lot of times as a balance. The old time scale, it's like a balance. And we try, humanly, this is what we do. We try to keep our life at an even balance, at an even keel, but it's hard when we don't put God first. We need to put God first in everything, and then our life will be in even balance. Are there other things that we can do? I mean, again, I've made the statement before, I would love to be in church every day of the week. I wish there was and again, I know from a physical standpoint and from a real life standpoint, everybody would not be able to be here 7 days a week. But I would love for something to be going on in this church 7 days a week. And if we're here 5 of them, if we're here 6 of them, or whatever, but there was something going on. Because of the balance that is needed, because the world is a mess. And you talk to people, even people that are in church, people's lives are a mess. What we see on Sundays and Wednesdays here with each other, you know, I want you to know here today, it's the good side. But there's struggles in everybody's life. And that's why that our faith needs to be strong. And that's why I would love more and more that our time is together. The world's a mess. And if we could spend more time with God, how great would that be?
I can think of one man, well, I'm sure there's more than one, but still, the one that comes to my mind, he could pray an hour at a time and never, bother off, is Roger's dad. He'd pray forever. Whenever he married me and Roger, and I thought, oh no, I'm going to die before I get to this prayer. That's when I'm having a lot of problems with my feet and stuff. And I thought I'd never get through that prayer, but he just pray.
And so,
his wife, his wife, my mother-in-law, she said she fell asleep, when he was praying, and he just left her there at the couch, because he always knew he prayed long, but still, it was just the way he did things.
all right, I've got verses 6 through 17. I'm going to stop somebody at some point here because I want to get to something that is I want to get to this very, very cool moment, okay? We're building up to it is what we're doing. All right, wherever we left off, verses 6 through, and I'll stop you here at some point.
And Joshua spake unto the priests, saying, Take up the ark of the covenant, and pass over before the people. And they took up the ark of the covenant, and went before the people.
And the Lord said unto Joshua, This day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee.
And thou shalt command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, When ye are come to the brink of the water of Jordan, ye shall stand still in Jordan.
And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, Come hither and hear the words of the Lord your God.
This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive out before you the Canaanites, Hittites, oh, this is why you told me to read. Hittites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, Jebusites. Your turn.
Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passes over before you into Jordan. Now therefore, take him 12 men out of the tribes of Israel, out of every tribe a man.
And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that came down from above, and they shall stand upon a heap.
Okay, let's stop right there a minute. So, here's all the instruction that is now going again, and you know, God was telling Joshua back in chapter 1, as I was with Moses, I'm going to be with you. Here he says it again in chapter 3. This is all going to happen as a way to show the people that as I was with Moses, so I'm also going to be with you, Joshua. So now, you're going to take the Ark of the Covenant. And remember, this is floodwaters. Let's not forget that. This is floodwaters. Back 1997. I don't know if you all remember the flood of 97. Yeah, Belinda should remember it well. She had a hysterectomy when the flood of 97 was going on. She missed most of it. She was in the hospital. But I used to have a gentleman that would come visit me from a work perspective, and he worked for the state Department of Environmental Protection. And this was a big man. He was about 6 foot 7 inches tall and probably 350 pounds. Big dude. And his parents lived down in Mullins. And both of his parents were bedridden. And he was, by the time he got to their house, the waters were already coming up into the house, and the mattresses were floating on their bed. So again, now this guy's 6 foot 7, 350 pounds. By the time that he is now trying to float his parents one at a time out of this house to get them to a place of safety, he said by the time, I don't remember which one was first now, he took one out and then he come and got the other one. By the time he got the second one out, the water was up to his neck. That traumatized him so much, as you can imagine, because all that he could think of is, I gotta get mom and dad out of that house. And he was ready to do whatever was needed to get them out. And then after that happened is when he fell apart. He was actually only able to work about another year. And from a mental standpoint, he was done. That impacted him. That's what floodwaters can do. Anybody who's been through a flood can talk, can really tell you about things. I had a real estate client a few years ago that was over in Raynell whenever that flood hit. And I don't remember the year. Was that 12 or 13, I think? Somewhere in that time era. And they were in a room in their house. They set a chair on top of their couch to get out of the water. And then it subsided. They were terrified. They couldn't swim. You can't swim in floodwaters. Okay? It's raging. It's going from the top of that mountain down to 1,300 feet below sea level. And do you hear what God is telling them here? You've got your priests with the Ark of the Covenant. And then I want you to get 12 men representing each tribe to come behind them. And whenever that their feet hit that water, it's going to stop. Now I want you to think of that. This is what God was telling them. And we're sitting here, if we were there, come on, we'd be honest. Yeah, right. Doubt is going to enter in. That's where we're going to be. All right, let's keep going with verse 14.
And
came to pass when the people were removed from the tent to pass over Jordan, and the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people.
And as they that bear the ark will come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water. For Jordan overflowed all his banks all the time of harvest.
That the water,
That the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon a heap very far from the city, Adam that is beside Zerton, and those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho.
And the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan, and all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over Jordan.
Look that up right there, bud. You think about that, you just talking about that elevation of that thing?
Yeah,
Mount Hebron is 9,232 feet,
thank you.
and that river is 156 miles long. So that, and you saying it's 1,300 below sea level.
So 22,
So
again,
that thing's what, 10,000 something below?
Yeah. So that water's humming. I mean, it's going fast.
Yeah.
That water's moving. So here's the possible crossing point, the city of Adam. Now this whole thing, all right, you just said 156 miles. You know, I said earlier about 200 miles. So that's what this whole stretch is. So from here, when their feet hit the water, the brink of the water, as it says, the water stopped. So you can imagine that everything to the left, it drains on down to the Dead Sea, and it piles up into a heap. That water begins to pile up back to the city of Adam. And as that water is coming down all that mountain, it just continues to pile up more and more until all of God's children is able to cross that mile-wide Jordan River on dry land.
Not muddy.
What's that?
Not muddy.
Not muddy, that it's known for on dry land. Is that cool or what? So you can think about, as God was telling them, just trust me. They had to wait for 3 days watching those floodwaters. That anticipation and that fear of what was before them. We have to step out in faith for God to ever do His work. For God to act, we have to step out in faith, right? For us to see God's actions, we have to step out in faith. So they had to step out there. They had to take the first step into the water. And again, they're 3,000 feet back, watching it all happen. I bet there was some shouting going on. That unbelief was replaced with, look at what my God can do. Shouting and praising Him. And then, let's go. Let's get across that river. Thought or question?
Is ark the old English word for box?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure is.
I looked at that mountain too that Ed looked up. It's the tallest one in Israel. In Syria, Lebanon line goes through it, and that's a ski slope. I think we should go on a field trip next winter.
You know, whenever God puts us in a place to do something, our part is so minor. I mean, really. We have fear and anticipation and anxieties, but all we've got to do is get our foot in the water, and He does everything else.
Where's our faith?
Yep. So whether we think about waiting, consecration, faith, All of these are important, and they play out in our daily life. And that's why it's so important that we set God as our motive, as our priority. Everything that's about Him, we need to do that. All right. Anything else on anyone's heart? We was able to get it out of there.
When I was talking about smite, you know, that's the old English word for strike, isn't it? Smite?
Yes, sure is.
I thought I'd bring these questions up in case some of these younger people here don't know what the definition of the word.
Sure.
It's true.
Step into the water, wade out a little bit deeper. Y'all remember that song? Can't remember the rest of it. That was going a little ways back. All right. We appreciate everybody coming out tonight. We do want to remind you we're going to have a little putt-putt tournament on Saturday. You know, they're saying there's a chance of some rain and some showers. Wear a raincoat. We'll do about anything else in the rain, right? Steve golfs in the rain all the time. All right, 10 o'clock we'll be over at the miniature golf course there on Harper Road, and then we'll be back here Sunday morning at 10 o'clock for Sunday school. Stand with us if you would.
Luke, I was a little late for prayer requests, but I do ask that everybody would continue to remember Grandpa Harry. He actually took a little more turn for the worse as the day went on today. He is on a ventilator. He had surgery early this morning, and they actually left him open to maybe try to get some infection or something out, and they're going to re-operate on him on Friday. So he's really struggling right now. And Grandma went up to see him today, and she's not handling it well either. So please keep up with them in your prayers.
Sure will.
Remember us, we're gonna be traveling this weekend, the whole family, and all next week, so keep us in your prayers, and remember Asher.
I could say you're not allowed.
Come with us.
There's about 25 of us, so keep us in your prayers.
Talk about faith. Whew.
With that, remember me too as I travel back Friday.
Yep.
To Florida.
Michael's going to be leaving us again for a few weeks, so pray for him. He'll be in it's a camp you're going to be taking part in. All right. Great work that is there. With that, Brother Michael, I'll ask you if you would tonight. Could you close us out in a word of prayer?
Dear Lord, we thank you again for giving us this opportunity to gather together on a Wednesday night and just studying your word in Joshua, Lord, and for letting us see the effects that your word has on our own lives and the effects our lives can have on your work through the lives of Joshua and the lives of the Israelites. Lord, we just ask that you help us to step out in faith and to do your will through that faith, Lord, that we might see you work and we might see you act, and just to have that right motive behind what we do as we do it for your honor and your glory, Lord. Thank you again for your many blessings that you bestowed upon us. We follow prayer requests that were mentioned tonight, the traveling and the health and everything else that's burdening our hearts, Lord. We know that you have all power and oversight over that, Lord. We